Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete and lifestyle coach. And we have a special guest, a very special guest. And it's so cool that you can bring people back that you used to know years ago, and you can kind of see where people have where their journey has gone in life. So, Nicole, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. It's so great to be back here in this space with you because I feel like you've been a part of my arc as I've shifted. So, I am a leadership and resilience coach. I work with high achieving, high performing women leaders who have become the invisible fixers of their organization. They're extremely competent subject matter experts, but folks go to them to solve their problems and they kind of get lost in that competence. And so, what I love doing is working with these women to help them find their strategic voice, really help them to lock in that confidence so they get out of their heads a little bit and really shine in their leadership brilliance. And so, it's about how they show up externally, how they take command of that room, if you will, and really going deep into their executive presence. And that work has just come out of, back in the day when you and I first connected, I was doing a lot of productivity work. And as I started to really look at what that was like, folks were really stuck in loops. And so procrastination, perfectionism from this voice in their head that was kind of talking them out of it. And so
Mhm.
as a coach, the deeper we go, the more we unwrap the different layers of our clients, we realize what's happening underneath the surface. And so I absolutely love watching them shine in their brilliance and develop unshakable confidence and leading and commanding rooms in new different ways.
Wow, that I just warms my heart when I hear that, because I see, and I'm sure you the same way. But I want to ask a question like, to go from organization to the leadership and the resilience that you're in now, what what motivated or what was in your journey that helped you move to this level of coaching?
So it's interesting. As you said, I had started my work in productivity and organizing, doing a lot of small business, micro business, helping systems, workflows, right? I always get excited about that. How do you use tech instead of tech using you? And
Yes.
that's kind of when you and I met. And the more I started to work with my clients, it started to morph, right, from client requests. And I grow as my clients' needs have grown. So it became, hey, can you train us instead of just doing one on one, do one to many? So I started working with groups and teams. And so the
Hmm.
more I worked with the groups and the teams, I realized I had to really get the leader in my back pocket. So I started to do a lot of work with leaders. And then it became not just about the filing systems, but can you help me figure out productivity wise workflow, delegation? And as I realized I was starting to dabble my toes into coaching, it said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So I went and got certified. I've been a certified coach now for over 10 years,
Hmm.
and it's transformed the work that I've done. I also relocated from New York to the Northern Virginia area. And the way of work in Northern Virginia also helped to dictate it. I got clients asking me, hey, can you come into our organization? So I started to do a lot of soft skills training, right? The
Hmm.
really hard soft skills, communication, collaboration, project management for non project managers, because it's like, doesn't everyone know how to do this? Oh, you don't. I've got you. And as the two different sides of my business, the facilitation grew and the coaching grew, I realized to really have impact, I needed to spend my time with the leaders of the teams. And so I really started to work with leaders at all levels of the organization, emerging leaders, managers, and supervisors, but especially in the leadership roles in the C suite, so that when the decisions they made cascaded down, it was consistency and culture.
Hmm.
I've ended up doing a lot of work with folks in tech, engineering, science-based fields, and so I noticed a little bit of a trend with some of my clients, especially my female leaders, that they were these silent fixers. They were the backbones of their organizations. They were the go-to experts that were, keeping things running smoothly, but their voices weren't showing up in all the right places in the organization. And, it was always getting called in after the fact to fix the problems that they should have had a seat at the table to help decide before. And that is kind of what pulled me through the thread. As my clients' needs grew, I grew. And also the other part, and I think you and I talked about this a little bit, was my own personal journey.
Hmm.
I had a cancer diagnosis at the beginning of the pandemic. I am now 5 years cancer free, thankfully. But that taught me a lot about resilience
Mm-hmm.
and how do you rebuild? How do you come back when something shakes your most deeply rooted confidence in yourself and how you show up? And so that gave me an additional lens that I work with my clients through.
You know, I love the journey because I've had similar because I'm an organized, I don't know, say OCD, whatever it is, I have to have an organized environment. And that kept growing in that. But here's what I want to go, question too, because I'm in Rotary down here, and we have a very diverse, wonderful. The energy in the room is contagious. And here's one thing that I've noticed over the last couple of years. We have, let me think, five presidents in that time span.
Mhm.
They're all women, one guy, and I grew up with two sisters, two daughters, five granddaughters. So
You're
I
surrounded.
understand the sixth sense. I understand how unique that environment is when you have a woman leader. What do you think as you're training leaders and focusing on the women side because of just where your journey is? What do you think the difference is that you've seen in coaching women leaders?
Mhm. Okay. So I'll say there's no one blanket rule, right?
Mm,
But my experience has been women leaders, when I'm coaching them, are more quick to go below the surface level, right?
mm,
I'm thinking of a couple of my, I coach and have coached and will work with male clients, male leaders as well. But I find I have to really peel back, like, you're one tiny, tiny peel and layer at a time when I'm working with some of my male clients because it takes them a little time to open up and hit that vulnerability. And so when I'm working with my women leader clients, there's an earnest desire. Why they show up, it's because enough has been enough and they're ready to do that work. It's
mhm,
not that they're being voluntold or told you have to go through this process. It's they're seeking it out. They know that there's another way forward. And so when we work together, it's faster transformations and we go deeper. And that allows us to really tap into the what's happening here. What's this underlying root cause that's getting in the way of how you want to show up? And
mhm,
then we can implement those strategies more quickly. So the course of our coaching engagement together, we're doing the work, right? They're seeing real transformation. We're not just scraping the surface as the engagement is done. And so I've really enjoyed that, watching the transformation truly happen. A couple of
mm,
things I think about, like one client in particular that's coming to mind right now. We have been working together, and I started working with her, coaching with her specifically. And she was struggling to, have that voice and presence with her leadership team. She was an incredible subject matter expert in a highly regulated industry
mhm,
and was constantly fighting the fight to have them listen to her. And in the course of our work together, she realized how to be more direct in her speech, how to have the confidence in what she was saying, to make recommendations, not as questions, but as this is what you need to do. And just the slight shifts that happened as she was able to do it, we could come back and tabletop. Okay, this happened. What was that experience like? What do you want to do next? And so the transformation happened for her over the course of like 6 months, and it was amazing. And so watching her now when she stands up and commands the room, I still work with the organization. She walks into that room, people
mhm,
listen to her. When she makes a recommendation and tells them, "This is what we're gonna do," folks more senior than her, and she's like, "I'm not," she had an opportunity to go for a higher leadership role. She goes, "I'm fine where I'm at now." I didn't and the reason she said is, "I realized I don't need to have that senior of a role to have my voice be heard."
mm,
Working with me, she got exactly what she needed because she wanted to be able to have direct influence on the day to day. Felt like the next level would have been too much of a shift for her away from that. So she
mhm,
was able to really develop her team, really like take that mid level of the organization and transform how they were working, how they were connecting with other end users and departments. And so, course of our work together, that happened because she came in ready to peel back the layers, ready to be vulnerable, ready to own up and say, I can do this, but I can't do this. Help. And that's one of the biggest differences that I've seen.
I love that. What would you say, like, life's a journey, and in 2020, when you were diagnosed with cancer, how did that change your life and your journey? And how have you seen your business change as a result of going through that time in your life?
It was walking into a brick wall initially, right? I got the diagnosis right at the beginning of January and started my treatment. My first round of chemo, first of 18 rounds of chemo happened 2 days after my birthday. Worst
Mhm.
birthday present ever. But it was also a week before the world shut down for the pandemic. And so it was a shifting time for me because as a business owner, I'm a solopreneur, I'm the face of the business. Here I am literally going through transformation. Lost all the hair, the things that happen when you go through chemo. I've
Mhm.
I have had 8 surgeries over the course of 4 years to, all the repairs, mastectomies, all of that. And what it forced me to do, right, was actually walk the talk a little bit more and lean on others. So I
Mhm.
have been incredibly fortunate with amazing strategic partners. And I remember different partners, especially one in particular, came forward and her organization did a lot of work with the federal government. And I had been doing training for her, ad hoc training. And she needed, they were still trying to figure out when everyone was in shutdown, how do we keep folks working? And so training became kind of the go-to. And you'll appreciate this part because she said, "Can you do virtual trainings?" And I was like, "Can I do virtual trainings?" Like we've been doing virtual stuff,
Yeah.
since 2009. Like, name
Yeah.
it. What platform are you going to use? We've been on it. And so I was one of her facilitators who I was really quickly able to convert my sessions to virtual sessions because I've done that so many times before
Mhm.
that I was able to actually double my revenue
Wow.
during the pandemic while I was going through cancer treatment because I was able to tap back into the skills that I had been building over the course of the prior, decade or so, virtual training, connection, collaboration. And because I didn't have to be on camera a lot at that time, a lot of folks I was still safe off camera. It gave me an opportunity to kind of be shielded. But something that really interesting I learned from the pandemic that I went deep on, and I
Mhm.
tell my clients this, right? We can't get hung up on the reels that we see on Instagram. The reels aren't reels, like the stories that people tell and people that
Yep.
pull out. Because in my experience, I didn't tell folks for a long time that I was going through cancer treatment. I just felt like people were dealing with so much trauma. And I was trying to navigate it myself. It was several months before I came forward and went, official on social media. But that didn't stop my social media presence from going. My team still was able to put out all of my posts, all my information, my articles. I was still working. And what that taught me is that you can't get caught up by what you see on the surface. You have
Mhm.
to go deeper because what you see on the surface is oftentimes not real.
Yep.
And it made it much easier for me to lean on my community. And so that opened up a whole different level of delegation and partnership and collaboration for me. And now I have amazing folks in my cadre that help me maintain that presence, show up in different ways. I've totally leveled up. My OBM, I absolutely adore her. Shout out to Shari, my graphic designer Eliana, and my social media. She does my graphics on my social media. Like they wrap me around with the VAs and everything else. And I
Mhm.
show up in different ways. But it went back to being in a place of such vulnerability for myself that I
Mhm.
had no choice but to lean on other people. I had no choice but to open up and I had no choice but to delegate. And when I finally started to let all of that go, right? Yes, I've been teaching this. Yes, I had done it, but it was very marginalized. It was
Mhm.
freeing. It was amazing. It's like, I don't have to do that. My team's got that. I'm not a part of that. But also, it helped me tap into partnerships more. So my
Mhm.
business has grown consistently since then because I am far quicker to recognize partnership opportunities and dive into them, where I
Mhm.
might have been resistant before, or actually not resistant, but hesitant.
Mm. I like, and I always hear we tap into the skills we've learned in the past, and sometimes we don't know what they are until we go through those.
Mhm.
When you hear the word resilience, and would you kind of share with our community what does that mean to you? And
Mhm.
going through different phases in our life, we're able to kind of go deep into who we are to get stronger. How did you get stronger, and what does resilience mean to you?
Um, so when I was going through treatment in my journey the last few years, I had a lot of folks ask me, like, how did you do it? You seem so strong. You stayed so positive. And it made me pause and really think about how. And I realized I've been building resilience over time, right?
Mhm,
And as I look over my journey, I can see different challenge moments in my life. And that's what I
mhm,
call them, the challenge moments. So, 6 different, elementary schools across 2 countries and 2 states, being the new girl, having to start over and over again, right? That's an
mhm,
example of things that form resilience. So when I think about resilience, what comes to mind for me is actually a phrase that I had the nurse write on my board when I woke up the morning after my double mastectomy and my reconstruction. I had a 19-hour surgery, and I woke up and this thing was buzzing in my head. And I asked my night nurse, I said, "Can you just write these words on the board for me? I don't want to forget it. When I get my phone, I'll take a picture." And it was build your bounce back muscle.
hmm,
And so when I think about resilience, and I hadn't, it was just like phrase kept popping in my mind. And so I kept like, why? What is that? Why is that? So for me, when I think of resilience, I think we've sometimes confused the word. And I see folks pushing through, and I'm resilient. I push through. So for me, what resilience is not, it's not, putting a band-aid on a wound that needs surgery.
mhm,
It's not pushing through and burning yourself out and suffering in silence. And I think a lot of folks think that, I'm being resilient and I'm dealing with this burden that I have on my own and I'm shouldering it, right? I wrote a book, actually published it during my treatment and pandemic,
hmm,
The Full Plate Detox. And I call my clients in that book sheroes, and I have this little cape thing on. It's like it's over my shoulder here. I'll find it
mhm,
somewhere. But what I tell folks, it's like we are usually strong for other people, and we need to put our capes on for ourselves. But
mm,
putting our cape on for ourselves, being shearers for ourselves, it's not a false sense of strength. So your resilience is about how fast do you bounce back when a challenge event happens?
mm,
How fast do you recover? And so when you think of the recovery part, that's why I think it's important to have that in
mhm,
the definition of resilience, because if all we are is strong and all we are is pushing through, we're not actually doing the things we need to do to be healthy, right? To press that reset. We're just dealing with it and we're enduring. And so it's the difference for me between survival mode and thriving. When we're in survival mode, I think of cockroaches. They survive, right? They exist no matter
mhm,
what. You can't get rid of them, but it's just existence. And so you're burnt out, you're stressed out, you're tired, but you're existing, you're being resilient. And that's what people think. No, the resilience is when you're thriving. Am I growing through this experience? What's the opportunity, the lesson, or the gift that I can take from that experience? And I learned that from my work with positive intelligence. So that's one of the resources and tools that I utilize with my client.
mhm,
If I look at this experience that I'm going through, I want to take something positive out of it to make the pain, to make the suffering worthwhile. That's my mindset when I deal with anything, right? If I stub my toe, I'm going to be like, okay, what did I learn from that? Right? Like, stop rushing,
mm,
maybe move the couch over a little bit more. And so that shift, that mental shift of what's the gift? What's the lesson? What's the opportunity? Where can I grow through this experience?
mm. Wow.
Really retraining my brain to look for positivity instead of negativity
Mm,
made all the difference for me. And that's what I think of when I think of resilience. If you're just enduring and surviving,
yeah,
you are in that cycle of negativity. The
yep,
voices in your head are negative. The energy that you put out is negative. You wear it on your face in a way that people can see it. And it really affects you mentally, emotionally, and
yep,
physically. When you
absolutely.
are in resilience mode, you're growing, you're learning, and it's not false positivity. It's not, I'm going to put a smile on my face even though I'm hurting inside. I'm
Mhm,
through it, right? Like this
yes,
hurts. It sucks. I stubbed my toe. This thing happened. And you know what? I'm going to be okay. I'm going to thrive through it. And that's something that I've wanted to teach my kids and my family. That's the
mhm,
example that I've shared. And so as I've gone through it and I've had people ask me about it, now I've really tapped into that because I realize so many folks need to understand. How do we move from survival mode into thriving? And
Yeah.
that's the work that really excites me now.
Ooh, everything you said, there's like so many value bombs that just were dropped on our. And I want to go to a couple things here.
Mm.
I heard, I think it was Brendan Bouchard who said, like, honor the struggle, which is what you just were sharing. But here's one thing that I have seen so prevalent is the consumption mindset versus creating. We're watching average 4 hours of TV, scrolling over 2 hours of social media, and people think that they're being social on social media, but there's no, you drop the social, it's just media. You're
Yeah.
consuming media. How does Nicole keep creating? Because we're almost pulled into that consumption. How do you stay in that creative mindset that you could share with our viewers?
I stay curious. I am a lifelong learner.
Hmm.
Can't see it in the frame. I got a bookshelf and the shelves are crying. My Kindle is full of different books. I love learning. I take courses for the sake of learning, not just because, oh, I want that credential, but it's like, as something piques my interest, whether it's a client need or I see something popping up, I look for trends and conversations. I want to go deeper. And once I learn, I always say, how do I share this? How do
Hmm.
I pass this knowledge along? One of the lessons learned, and I actually shared this with a group of coaches that I was a part of. I think it was, oh my gosh, it's coming up in a year or so ago. We talked about this. When I worked in corporate, and back in the day, you wanted to go for training, you had to justify the training and say, how does this thing that I want to learn support the goals or mission or vision of the organization? So
Hmm.
when I started my own business, that's a trend I continued. Everything that I've done as a certification, learning, conference, anything I've gone to, I've always made it a rule that I need to take something out of that and share that knowledge forward. It's going to support the mission of my organization. So
Hmm.
at the end of my day, what I went into business for, I've always wanted to help people be more productive, engaged, and happy at work so they can go home and plug in and be more present with their families, right?
Hmm.
However and whoever I work with, that's my underlying cause. So if
Hmm.
I'm learning something, then I've got to share it back, but I want to share it in a way that's fun to learn, right? Anyone that comes to my sessions knows I refuse to do something that's going to bore you. You're going to play, right? I'm a huge believer teams that play together stay together. So we're going to play. My clients laugh because I'll show up in a session with crayons and popsicle sticks and marshmallows, and it's like we're gonna have some fun today, right? So
Hmm.
we're gonna learn in an engaging way, but I want them to walk away, and so I'm laser focused on, I want them to have this nugget, right? I want them to think about, for example, mental fitness. What does that mean for them when they're dealing with constant change? We know change is not going to go away. It's constant. It's the
Yeah.
normal. So let's make that something that they can move towards. So I learn, and then I think about how to share that out. And I try to be creative in it. And so I'm still a night owl. Right? I'm up all hours of the night. I'm creating classes, microbursts. And so I share that out in the courses that I teach and I take to organizations, in the posts that I put out in social media as well, and just in the one on one conversations I'm having with my clients or when I'm networking.
Wow. That is so good. That just like warms my heart when you communicate, when you're talking about that, because I have seen so much of the people in that consumption model. We're born to create, and the more we're creating, we're excited, we're energetic. What would you say if you had to talk to your 20-year-old self and you've learned all this over these years? What would you tell that person that you now know and you would like to share with your 20-year-old self?
Well, the first thing I would tell her is make sure you keep working out during your 30s. Don't stop that.
Mm.
Mobility is important.
Yeah.
Um, I would tell her to get out of her head.
Mm.
Right? I am a naturally introspective person. And when I was younger, and,
Mhm.
before I really came to understand what I bring to the table, I would turn things over in my head so many times that it would prevent me from reaching for that goal. Right. And so I would tell her, Get out of your head. Just do the thing, right?
Mm,
If you're going to fail, fail fast, fail forward, take your lesson, learn from it, and try again a different way or next time,
mhm,
but live, right? Because 20-year-old me was stuck in survival mode.
mm,
Right? I can think about where I was at that time in my life. I was in survival mode. I was trying to finish college. I was a young student, paying for school on my own, trying to figure all of that out. And I didn't really plug in and engage and build relationships and build my network. So
mhm,
if 20-year-old me had gotten out of her head and stopped worrying so much about just the GPA, she would have really plugged into some of those relationships and started building her network faster.
ooh, that's so
Because your
good.
network is your net worth, right? That's what
Yes,
we're taught. And so it
totally.
took me a while to learn that lesson.
Yeah, that is so good. And what would you say when you look at growth? Like, what are you excited about next year as you create next year and Nicole and what you're excited about based on what you've learned and where you are in your journey?
Oh, so much. It's a huge scale year for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have right now I'm waiting any day to hear word on an incredible client opportunity. And so when you start pitching and you're doing, you scale up and you're like, I'm gonna go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I put a bid in on on an opportunity that really is gonna stretch. And so for me, I'm looking forward to that stretch
Mm-hmm.
uh, because it's an exciting client service engagement. Can't go deeper than that, but one day I will. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking to get back to something that I started this year. So I just celebrated my 20th year in business.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've wanted to do is to be to other women as they're on their rise what I needed. So I'm launching the Rise Suite, which is my coaching container for women leaders who are, as I described, that incredible fixer, invisibly competent client who is
Mm-hmm.
really looking to tap into that leadership voice, to be more strategic, to have more confidence, and to be unshakable in her presence. So I want to help more women
Mm-hmm.
rise and really reach that level for themselves. Like you and I've talked, like I'm a firm believer, and I'm not a man basher. I want to clarify that. I work with a lot of my
No,
male
I
clients
I
as
know what
well,
you're
right?
saying
Right.
because we're born who we are, and I always say girls have that sixth sense, and it's a beautiful one because I'm going like I didn't see that, and it's like they see a different. They they receive information differently than guys, so we are different in that, and it's leaning into your gifts.
Mhm.
But I understand what you're saying, but go
Right.
ahead.
No, I had someone say, "You can't." I'm not. I love my male clients and I work with them as well and collaborate with them. But this has been just something that's been brewing for me. The
Mm,
more that I was in a leadership role for the local chapter of a women-focused business organization. And it just really, the conversations and the insights that I kept hearing have more and more brought me to this space where I'm really excited about helping more women find that foundation for themselves so that they can thrive and grow. And really, because when we grow as women, our communities grow, right? We bring everyone along with us, male and female, and we're looking for how do we spread this love and spread the wealth. So I'm excited about next year
mhm,
because I'm launching and I'm stretching and I'm going to see where it goes. I have a low flying safety net, but I'm trying new things and I'm really expanding. And so I'm looking forward to that work.
ooh, that's so good. What would you mentioned leveling up, you mentioned network. You hear it, everybody's heard you're the sum of the five people you hang around the most, and people do influence it. How do you keep leveling up with your relationships? Do you have anything you could share with our community that Nicole does to kind of stretch? Because I love what you said, getting out of that comfort zone. Nothing happens in our comfort zone. It's
No, one
uncomfortable. So how do
truly.
you level up that you're continuing to grow in your relationships?
I go back to the biblical lesson, right? I need someone who's going to be my peer, who's going to give me my truth, right? I
Mhm.
need someone that I can teach, my Timothy, right? Like I can help bring them up, and I need someone that's going to teach me. And so when I get to that space where I feel like we're level set, right? Like I feel like I'm with only peers, I know that I need to be in another room where I'm going to be challenged, where I'm going to
Mm.
be stretched, where I'm going to get the butterflies in my stomach that are, telling me, okay, we're learning something new, or you're being exposed in a different way. Or like I hear conversations and it's like, oh, I got to talk about different things now. Okay, I got to stretch. And I've been extremely fortunate that I am a part of an organization, National Association of Women Business Owners. I've really gotten to know some incredible women there. And so,
Mhm.
for example, they have, you've got your established folks, but they have what they call the circle. And the circle is for women who are $1 million and over, right? And so I have a lot of friends that are in the circle and I'm listening to their conversations. And one of them looked at me, she goes, Nicole, we're going to get you here, right? And
Mm.
she put the gauntlet down, she put the challenge down, and it's like, okay, all right. I got to get there, right? Because while I go out to meals, like there's something things that happen in the inner circle, and so I put myself in different spaces. I am coached. I have a coach. I'm a part of Melissa Hinault's group, and that's stretching me because she's asking me to do things and asking me questions that it's like I didn't think about that, right? I'm getting called out, and so I always tell folks if you have a coach that it's not being coached, find another coach because your
Yes.
coach has to be willing to do the work as well. So I typically alternate. I do some sort of learning, whether it's a credential or a conference 1 year. Then the
Mhm.
next year I go into a coaching container and I make sure that I'm coached and I'm continually being stretched. And it's always around the areas that are my blind spots. And so I'll do a 360 to understand what my blind spot is
Mhm.
for that year because as you grow and change, it'll shift. And then it's like, all right, let me go learn that. Let me go put myself in a position where I'm getting taught. And then usually I'm going to take that lessons and I'm going to help teach somebody else.
Ooh, that is so good. I have 2 questions, and I wanna be respectful of your time.
Oh, here, I'm happy
So,
to.
one question, and I hear it come up, we have a lot of free information out there. Why, with all the free information, do I need to pay for coaching if I've got these best coaches out there that are giving away free? So, what do you tell people when they say, "I can get it for free, why should I pay you?" What
Or,
what's
or,
your what do you share with them?
or I'm being AI coached. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm not going to knock the hustle because I remember what it's like to be in that space where I feel like I want to, but I'm not ready yet to invest, right?
Mhm.
So if that's the reason why I can't ready invest yet, and it's an investment, not an expense, in a one-on-one coach or a group coaching container that's going to help me grow, then I'm going to learn, right? So you're in learning mode, and that's okay. The trouble is when you're going out to find the information or to learn, you're looking through your blind spot, your tunnel vision lens, right?
Mhm.
For what you think you need. It's like going to Dr. Google to diagnose yourself, right? I'm going to put in the symptoms that I recognize.
Mhm.
But when you're working with the expert, with your coach, they're more holistic. They're looking at it at a more strategic level. Think about it as they're planning the forest, not just looking at the trees. They're
Yep.
seeing your blind spot. They're seeing that things that's just outside of your range of vision that you can't see. And they're going to probe and ask you that question. And that's the thing that you need unlocked to get to your next level. That's the
Mhm.
value of a coach. A coach is going to be able to listen to you talk these things through and hear the nuance in your voice. And a coach is listening, not just for what you say, but what you don't say. They're listening
Yes.
for how you say it. And this is what I tell folks like AI coaching or reading the article is not tapping into your emotions, right? You're
Mhm.
not getting that reflective lens in your emotions. And as coaches, we know that we can pick up on the shifts in their clients' voices, in their tonality, right? Especially those of us who learned coaching back in the day on the good old fashioned phone, where you
Mhm.
had to really be plugged into the voice to understand, there was a shift in your energy. What just happened? Right? Um, what stories are you telling yourself that you're not telling others, right? You start asking different questions. That's the value a coach is going to bring. And they're going to be the sounding board, strategic advisory.
Yep.
Right? That's how I show up for my clients. I'm your strategic advisor. I'm your confidant. I'm your sounding board. And when necessary, I'm a truth teller. So if I hear it, I'm going to call it out. I'm not going to, you can scroll past that answer on when you're doing your fact finding,
Yep.
right? You can choose not to quote unquote do the work, but when you're sitting in a session with a coach and they ask you the question, very few people are going to tell you, I don't want to answer that. They're going to open up. They're going to realize I've never thought about that before. Or yeah, that is a sensitive subject. Or they're going to realize I've been avoiding that, and you need your coach to help you. And your coach guides you through that. They don't leave you on your own. They're a guide for you. Once I read a book, the book is not going to help me in the middle of the night when that thought is running in my head. Your coach
Yes.
is going to guide you through that. So I think, yes, there's a place for that education. There's a place for free information, but it cannot replace the value a coach brings to the table.
Ooh, that is so good. You mentioned like when you were talking to your 20-year-old self, there's a lot of stuff that goes through this head. And I heard, I don't know if it's exactly accurate, but we have between 12 and 60,000 thoughts that go through our head. So how do you journal? How do you get those thoughts out of this head that, in our self-talk is so important? What strategies or what insights can you share of how you get this, what we have working up here out and get through all the clutter?
I call it negative Nelly, my negative Nelly voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because out of those between 12 and 60,000 thoughts, they say about 37,000 of them are negative thoughts.
Yep.
We're meaner to ourselves than we ever would be to someone
Yep.
else. And I heard somewhere, and it's like I'm always curious. There's some folks that just visualize their thoughts, and some narrate. I'm a narrator. I
Mm-hmm.
have that internal conversation. And so when I hear a voice, I pop, and when I hear that negative Nelly start to creep in, I stop, and it's just like, would I let my coaching client get away with that statement? And so those are my signals, like I need to dig deeper. So I do journal. I'm a huge believer in just affirmations. I'll have my stickers of affirmations and things like around me all the time. This is one, right? I have growth mindset cards that I will go through and I will dig deeper on. And then I will go and have my coaching conversations. Like I make sure I bring them to my coaching conversations. And so I have trusted friends that sometimes I'll know this is a friend conversation. I'm like, hey girl, I need to talk. I'm gonna like this came out. I have my colleagues, like so we're networking and mastermind-ish colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
like my sheroes, I call them. We have a group of us. There are 8 of us. We jump into our group chat and it's like, y'all, I'm struggling. Help me out. Right. Right,
Oh,
so I
so
tap into
good.
my network. I don't
Mhm.
just sit in my head anymore, like, that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing for me. And so it's either I journal to get it out or I go better yet, I go talk to someone about it. I get it out of my head because when I say things out loud and I hear it being reflected back at me, like, I have one friend in particular I'm thinking of, she just looked at me, she goes, "Now girl, you just heard that come out of your own mouth. What are you gonna say about that?" And it's like that instant, like, why am I giving this any energy or airtime?
Yeah.
So you have to get it out of your head. If
Mhm.
you're a journaler, journal it, right? But even better, find that trusted confidant. Find that person that you can use as a sounding board to
Mhm.
help you see it through a different lens so that you're not just stuck in that tunnel.
Ooh, man, this is so good, Nicole. So, I have one more final question, but I wanted you to say, how can people get a hold of you?
Right. The easiest way for you to find me is going over to NicoleChamblin.com. That's going to take you to all things Nicole, whether you want to connect with me on social, you would like to invite me to be on, on your stage, or I speak, I coach, I train, I work with groups and organizations. So you can find me through that site. And I would love to connect. I always love hearing from people who say, hey, there's one thing you said, on Pete's podcast made a difference for me. So I would love to hear more from you.
Ooh, thank you so much. So, final question, like, what would be the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
Never stop reinventing yourself. Right.
Mm.
We are meant to grow. Right. We're human beings, so we're not human doings, but that means we're growing, we're shifting, we're evolving. Don't be afraid to let something go if it no longer serves you.
Mhm.
Right? It's honest, and when I say something, people sometimes we have friends who are there for a season, for a reason, or a lifetime, but Be ready to move and grow. Recognize that shifts are going to happen in your life. And real resilience is thriving, learning, and growing through those shifts. So
Hmm.
as things happen, look for your lesson, look for your gift, look for your opportunity to think, how can I use this as a stepping stone to my next level?
Ooh, wow, that was so good. Nicole, thank you so much for your sharing, openness to share, and just helping people through those. Can probably think about 30 gold nuggets that were dropped in our podcast. And thank you so much for being so open and sharing with our community your journey, where you are, and the impact that you're making in the world. We appreciate you very much.
Pete, you're so welcome. And thank you for